Smooth Corrective is a specific use modifier. This will help you adjust problematic areas caused by previously added modifiers, shape keys, or animation. I've set up a simple armature inside this head mesh. I've created automatic weights and bone groups, and an armature modifier was added in the process. Now you can see the lesson on armature modifiers to get a more in-depth look at how this process is done. I'm going to rotate this bone here to a fairly dramatic pose so that we can get some deformation in the mesh which we would want to correct, such as around the nape of the neck here. We can see some of the vertices are pinching and overlapping, and normally this would not be an ideal situation. Now, if this was simply a pose, we could weight paint this, but if this area is something that is affected by a lot of animation, constantly updating the weights could be very time-consuming. So instead, we can add the Smooth Corrective modifier to this stack and use the settings here to make easy work of correcting an area like this. Already with its default settings, we can see a small improvement because of where the defaults are set. I'm going to reduce the factor to 0. As we increase the factor, we can see that the overall mesh smooths out in the most problematic areas. And by increasing the number of times that the smooth function is repeated, we can get a smoother and smoother result. The scale is set to a default of 1, and during animation there might be times when you have to increase or decrease this to get a better outcome. The smooth type can be set to simple. Now this algorithm just relaxes the vertices in relation to the distance between all of the vertices, or by length weight. Now this method can appear a bit more accurate, and the way this works is by averaging out all of the lengths between adjacent vertices to calculate the path along which to smooth out the affected topology. Let's create a specific vertex group which just targets the nape of the neck here. We'll select this as the vertex group that the corrective smooth will affect. I'll adjust some of the previous settings to get a more favorable outcome. Now, if we animate these bones, there'll be times in the animation where the corrective smooth will not be needed, and instead could cause slight problems. So we can keyframe these settings along with the animation so that the corrected topology is affected at the right times. The only smooth function will show you what the mesh looks like before any correction is applied. Boundaries are usually open areas of a mesh, and these sometimes can be problematic, and we might not want them to be affected. We'll select Pin Boundaries. Now, when we increase the parameters, the opening at the base of this object will not be affected. By default, rest source is set to original coordinates, but it can also take into account bind data from modifiers that might be higher in the stack. There's a lesson on surface deform modifiers for a more in-depth view about this, but for now, I'm just going to add this plane, subdivide it a little. Let's add a surface deform modifier and move this above the corrective smooth to see how this works. Set the neck as the vertex group that will be affected, and then click on Bind. We can now deform the plane, and the coordinates are better represented. So in combination, this modifier gives you lots to consider for a number of situations which might arise.